guys, welcome back. Ready to kick off another season, or if you want to call it that, of Hangtime clinics through Coach's Suite. I'm going to send you through a little deal here, and then we'll get started with our speaker, Kyle Trego, today, talking about special teams planning and prep. So I'm just going to share my screen here really quick. All right, so for anybody who doesn't really know the deal, Kyle said that he kind of wants everyone to just sort of chime in whenever they have a question. So we're not gonna force a mute, but just keep your screen muted until you actually have a question, just so we don't pick up any background noise. Quick disclaimer: we do record and post our Zoom clinics on our website for people to go back and reference later. So if you have any issue with your voice or image appearing online, just make sure you stay muted or with your camera off. And this is hosted by Coach's Suite, which is the company that Dan, John, and I run. It's a recruiting service that we help high school coaches with. It is a team recruiting service. We don't work through the parents and the players. We set up a program with the high schools, so we're not taking money from kids. We're taking we're working alongside the high school and the high school coaches. What we do is we work with teams to build them a sort of a recruiting headquarters. These are some of the teams we work with in Michigan. You get your own team recruiting headquarter page with any information that a visiting college recruiter might need to schedule an appointment. Your players are cataloged by graduation year, and then a coach is able to, who's recruiting your program, is able to click on an in-depth profile and see anything that they would need to know to recruit that player. So today's speaker, Kyle Trego, special teams coordinator, North Murray High School, played college football at Jacksonville State University, 6+ years of training kickers and punters, and most recently, 2023 Parker Resources 2A Special Teams Coach of the Year. Super excited to have him back. Friend of the show, spoke with us last year. Does a great job, so you guys are in for a treat. And I'm going to give screen share over to Kyle, and take it away, my man.
Awesome. Appreciate you on that. So just real quick, I'm going to share my screen and get it pulled up, but I just wanted to Suite and thank Coach Dan and Coach Rob for putting this on. Can you guys see this? Is it pulling up?
I got you.
Okay, awesome, man. I just want to thank you guys for having me and kind of creating this opportunity for coaches to get on here and talk about special teams. And really, when it comes down to this, what I'm going to go into today is just special teams preparation. Not going to talk about X's and O's. I've got my dry erase board set up in my room. So, if you guys at the end want to talk about X's and O's or ask questions about that, I can get on the board. But, as I'm going through this, if you got questions, please, don't hesitate to ask. I welcome it. It kind of makes it to where we can maybe flow through this pretty smoothly. But the reason why I wanted to talk about this just because, you don't have a whole lot of coaches that talk about what leads up to the X's and O's or what leads up to scheme. There's a lot that goes into it, in 365 days. And, I kind of wanted to hit on that. And, with it coming down to tonight, a lot of, these clinics that we're going to now in the off season, there's not a lot of special team speakers. There's really, maybe one or two out of like a 3-day clinic, and they're talking about X's and O's. So I'm hoping that, maybe somebody can take something away from this tonight. There's 1,000 ways to skin a cat. This is just kind of my, this is just my way of doing it. But we'll just go ahead and get started. So like I said, this is going to be basically January to the end of December. So the end of your state championship games. This is everything that I kind of do to get ready for the season and to go into the whole entire year. So off-season preparation, January up until spring ball. Now, this is not anything that you've got to get done, in January. The reason why I say January to spring ball is because you might be coaching another sport. You might, you might have other things going on family wise. So this is just some things to do. But really, I like to start off with just kind of a recap of the previous season. I like to look at some things, and I use these questions every off season to kind of guide me into into my preparation. So I always kind of ask myself, all right, well, what went well last year, and why did it go well? What didn't go well, and why did it not go well? Those are some big things because for me, I kind of use that, and I use a lot of like analytical data from years before to figure out, all right, well, are we on a consistent, level, or are we getting better, or are we getting worse every year? What changes can we make to be more successful next season? What gave us the most problems this year? I like to look at that as well and just kind of figure out how we can build moving forward. In January, you'll kind of see, towards the end of this where I get into some self scouting and self, as statistics. By this point, you should already have all your game stats and all your player stats together, in my opinion. This kind of makes it to where you can really get a comparison to how you did last year, or in a certain game, certain opponent, how you compared to last season. It also makes it to where your banquets are coming up, all region honors are coming up. You can be able to pump those stats out, to your head coach, or to a position group, guys that might be speaking about one of the players, and you can actually have those ready to go. Returning players, so at this time too, I like to go ahead and try to get exit meetings done. And really exit meetings with the specialist. That's to me, that's the most important thing. Every player on the team contributes to special teams in some way. Unless you're, a big time school where you're two platooning guys, you got guys that are just offense, guys that are just defense. You're probably, like us, almost every player is contributing on special teams. My thing is exit meetings with the kickers, punters, snappers, and returners. That makes it not only more personable, but it makes it to where you keep their interest in the off season. A lot of times you get these kickers that come out, or these punters that come out, they might be soccer guys, and they're going to get pulled away to soccer season. Well, while they're in soccer season, you don't want them to lose interest. You don't want those guys to lose interest. Next thing you know, it's spring practice, and they hadn't heard from you, you hadn't heard from them, and they're off, playing club soccer or doing something else. Same thing with the snappers and returners. You gotta, give those guys some love too. And one thing I like to do in this meeting is just cover what they did well, talk to them about what they need to improve on, and pretty much find what their goal is for the off season and for next season. I want them to have goals, and I want to try to figure out, all right, what's the best way we can get them to reach that, and tell them that in the meeting. So that way they kind of feel that coach relationship, and they really know that you're bought into them. I also, during this period, I like to look at the depth charts, and I like to look at those early. I like to figure out what are our needs for next season. Now, like I said, this is not something that you got to do in January, but in my opinion, you got to do it before spring ball hits, because you have more time to evaluate players to play in certain spots on special teams if you go ahead and get this done, because you'll have spring practice, you'll have all summer workouts, you'll have fall camp, you'll have everything leading up to game one to be able to make a true decision on a depth chart. Things that I like to do is I like to list out every unit, kickoff, return, so on. And I like to look at, okay, what seniors did we lose? What spots were those at? Were there any injuries towards the end of the season that's going to prevent a player from playing in spring, or even prevent a player from, participating in some of the summer workouts? Are there any players that were at risk or weak links that you were trying to hide? We're luckily, most of the time we have the best 11 out there, but sometimes there might be one or two guys that I'm trying to hide on the field. So, are those guys getting better or are they getting worse? Can I find somebody maybe to replace them? Um, During this time too, I'm looking at guys that aren't starters on offense and defense, but guys that can contribute on special teams. And I kind of put down here at the bottom some of the best guys, in my opinion, on some of these units are guys that wrestle or guys that play baseball. Wrestlers, to me, are huge. If you can find a wrestler and put them on kickoff team, they already got a screw loose. As long as they're coachable and as long as they can do what you need them to do, they're not afraid of combat and they're not afraid to go out there and kind of put their body on the line. Baseball players, they're usually good at fielding. So I like to put them, front line on kickoff or work those guys on that, so that way, surprise onside kicks, I got somebody there I can trust, put them on an up back on kickoff return, that way if it's a sky kick, I know they know how to field a pop fly. So those are kind of some guys I like to look for. The other thing I like to do during this time period is just clinics and networking. To me, attend as many clinics as you possibly can. You can always take something away from somebody, some coaching tip. My opinion, even if you're like, hey man, I'm a special teams coordinator, I don't care about offense, defense, which hopefully that's not how you are. But in my opinion, you got to attend offense and defensive speakers because a lot of times those offense and defensive speakers, they have some sort of terminology or technique that you can use on special teams. There's offensive special teams and defensive special teams. And sometimes those guys, it might be O-line talking about pass protection. And you might just hear, a technique about footwork that you can use on punt team. So those are some things that I like to do. And I like to go in there and take as many notes as I possibly can. Utilize Glacier Drive. Glacier Drive, whenever I was first starting out, my first year, I didn't really know about Glacier, to be honest, as a first year coach. But Glacier Drive is an awesome tool. If you don't pay for a subscription, they have some free videos on there of drills and technique, some stuff on there about scheme. That's an awesome opportunity, to take advantage of. And also just network and make connections. Twitter, LinkedIn, local coaches, stuff like this, attending, these small groups like this tonight, that's the perfect opportunity to make connections and network, but also bounce ideas off people, and just learn. There's a lot of different ways to do things. But during this time period, I think it's important to go to clinics and network. Spring ball. So spring ball, for us especially, and probably for most of you guys out there, your spring games don't have live special teams. You might just have a kicker out there kicking off and a returner, fielding the ball. For us, our PAT field goal is not live, but this is the first unit that I like to install, and I like to go ahead and have it maybe 85% ready because it's number one, it's the easiest to install. Number two, after you score in a spring game, they're going to have to go out there. And number three, you're able to go ahead and start working on operation time with your specialists. I like to work with them, every day during practice if I can, or every day after practice if I can. For us, it's myself and another coach, our O-line coach, Coach Roberts. We work on technique and protection with our guys as well. And we like to tell them too, even though it's a spring game and this is not live, you better step down and act like you're protecting like it's live every single rep. We do this so they can kind of get that muscle memory and go ahead and get that drill work in. But for us, when it comes down to a unit, in my opinion, the most important to go ahead and install is your PAT field goal unit. Just because they're going to be used, it's the easiest one to roll into. Special team circuits. Special team circuits are something that we go ahead and we start off pretty much day one in some form or fashion we'll go in and we'll start having special team circuits. To me, these circuits are the most valuable resource to the players because it allows you to teach technique, get quality reps, and get everybody involved, from the best player to the worst player, from the O-line all the way to the running backs. Get everybody involved. And I got my dry erase board and stuff, but I kind of went ahead and drew up just an example of really what one circuit might be like for us in the spring. If this is the 50-yard line, cutting the field in half, we might have a kickoff return circuit going on one side, and then like punt return on the other side. And I'll explain these drills here in a second, but we might have 8 minutes of a special team circuit, at the beginning of practice or right at the end or right in the middle. So if we got 4 stations in 8 minutes, we'll go 2 minutes per station, or we might go a minute and a half per station, let them rotate, give them 30 seconds to explain each station, and we'll just rotate clockwise, and we'll put them in 4 groups. Up top, the kickoff return circuit, it's one that I like to do. Usually we'll put a coach on each side, and they'll have a football in their hand. Coach is going to throw the ball to the returner, and he's going to blow the whistle while the ball's in the air. These X's on top of the cone right here on the top cone on the 47-yard line, those are kickoff guys. Their job is to run full speed in between these 2 cones that are about 5 yards apart on the 35-yard line, and go make a fit up kind of form tackle. We're not taking them to the ground, but on the returner. You're going to have a kickoff return guy right here on this cone that's 7 yards away from the kickoff guy. As soon as the whistle blows, both these guys are going, but the kickoff return guy's job is to go take a drop, get in between the cones, square up, use hands, and use technique basically to pretty much work this kickoff guy. All right, and we got ways that we grade good reps, ways that we grade bad reps. But basically, we'll do that with these guys up top. Down here at the bottom, we'll have a punt guy going, and we'll have a punt return guy going. It's kind of like one-on-ones. We'll have a cone sitting at about 4 yards apart from each other. They're on the 25-yard line. Coach is going to blow the whistle, or we'll go off a ball movement. And punt guy's job is to get in between the cones, make him miss, and work to the bag, and basically tag off on a bag that might be sitting at the 45-yard line. So it's a long ways away, but we do that because we want our punt return players to really work on technique, work on getting square, using the stick move is what we call it. Basically stick technique, getting a hand right inside, the armpit of the player, and really staying in between him and the bag, pretending that the bag's the returner. And right over here on the other side, we'll basically have a long snapper and have a punter. We'll go basically, guards and tackles on punt team. Then we'll run a player, basically right in front of them. And what we'll do is pretty much one-on-ones down there. We'll go inside guys first, then outside guys. And when we start this off, we don't, we kind of let them take baby steps, because you don't have guys that are, you might have new guys, you might have incoming freshmen, you'll have some guys that are used to this, but some aren't. So we'll go through this and we'll kind of let them slowly get into it. But this drill is one that I like to do. We'll let the snapper snap the ball, let the punter catch it, kind of go ahead and take his steps and get it out there right in front of him like he's going to drop it, to basically take it off his foot. And we'll go inside versus outside. And we kind of, we have different ways that we teach, but, we'll teach first guy out. You're going to go ahead and go, tacked in your shoulder, get your hands out, block it. The other guy scoops and scores, and we'll go through that. But to me, special team circuits are an awesome way. There's a lot of different drills that you can find online. Especially Glacier Drive. There's a lot of different, drills that we do. And we'll kind of change it up every week, and we'll include every unit during these drills. Getting into summer. So summertime for us, sorry about that, I had to take a drink of water. So summertime for us, that's a huge developmental period. I like to try to develop a routine, with the specialists, after workouts, just getting them together, getting the kickers, punters, snappers together, working on operation time, snap, hold, kick. I like to get the returners together, and I like to do a drill called, the jugs towel drill. As I saw it, I think, it might have been, Coach Rob and Coach Dan were like this. I think it might have been the Detroit Lions a few years ago. They had their returners would get a towel, and they would basically put a towel underneath their returners' armpits, and they'd make them keep their elbows tight, and they'd make them field the football. So what we used to do is we used to just, before we got a jugs machine, I would just, punt the ball in the air, let these returners work on keeping elbows tight, keeping the towel, tight underneath their armpit, and working on just fielding the football, not really moving around a whole lot, just working on tracking the ball. Now that we got a jugs, we'll shoot the jugs to them, and then about maybe the second, third week of workouts, we'll start moving them a little bit. Make them have to, they'll still have the towel underneath their arms, but we're making them move, track the ball in the air. Sometimes they're having to run full speed, sometimes they're not. But this is kind of a routine that we like to do with our guys. We like to spend this time too on just developmental, on all special teams. So we'll continue to do circuits, and we'll do circuits, pretty much year round. We'll take circuits all the way through spring, all the way through summer, all the way into fall camp. And when we get into the season, I have a practice schedule for you. I'm going to show you here in a minute. When we get into the season, if we have an opportunity to do a circuit, we'll do a circuit. But really during this time in the summer, we're working those. We're still trying to build the depth chart. I put on here, perfect technique before scheme. To me, that's the most important thing. It doesn't matter. I could go out there and have what I think is the best, kickoff philosophy in the world. But if my guys have crappy technique, we're going to get beat, and we're going to give up scores. So for me, we'll spend as much time as we need to on technique before we'll even get into scheme. During this time too, in the summer, special teams meetings, if you have an opportunity to do that, do it, take advantage of it. Our head coach, he is a huge ambassador of special teams. And, really when it comes down to it, not every high school is like that. There's high schools out there, and you guys know this, man, there's high schools out there where special teams coordinators, you might get 15 minutes a day total, to do what you need to do. But if you have an option to have special teams meetings, to me, this is huge. You can show them film, break down technique, especially, if you have access to filmers, getting guys to go out there and film some of your drills, be able to show those kids. You can talk scheme, talk a little bit of philosophy to them if you want to. But in my opinion, players need to be taking notes. And I put on here no phones. To me, I don't let them take notes on the phone, but also they know they better not have a phone out the whole entire time we're in the meeting. I make them old school it. Get out, pen, piece of paper, and jot down notes. Everything that we're saying is important. I like to try to include as many coaches as possible, especially our head coach, just to show these players the importance of special teams. The reason why I do this is because in rec ball, everybody wants to be a quarterback. Everybody wants to be a wide receiver, running back. Middle school, almost same deal. Nobody really hits a lot on special teams until these kids, get to, maybe middle school, but for sure high school. So a lot of these players, they might really not know the importance or the significance of it. But if you can get staff members to be bought in, and you can get your head coach as well to kind of pop in on these meetings and even chime in practice, that's going to help you out as a coach, because that's going to show these players, hey, my job is important. I don't need to take this rep off, this one rep off on Friday night. I need to make sure I'm doing my job. Most importantly, be organized, be prepared. Don't waste time in the meetings just because you might have offense and defense trying to go as well. Also, game plan for game one. in the summertime, really, in June, I'll start looking at our game one opponent. If it's somebody that we've played before, I like to go ahead and start, game planning for them, start looking at previous year's film. The reason why I put this on here just because, it's going to be here before you know it. So players and coaches, you got to make sure that you're studying your opponent. All right, the season. So for me, scouting opponents, here in a second, I'll kind of show you guys a breakdown, and I don't mind if you guys take pictures of any of this stuff, especially the breakdown, or even the copy that I give to coaches and players. For me, I'm watching every film I can get. If it's game 8, if we've got 8 films, I'm watching all 8 films. I'm watching offense and defense also. And I'm watching offense and defense as well because, I'm wanting to see body language of players. I'm wanting to see players that, might not be a starter on offense and defense, but he's a special teamer, or guys that are a starter on offense and defense that might have weaknesses that I can take advantage of on special teams. So when I'm watching film, I'm not just watching special teams. I'm usually watching everything, and taking notes on all of it. And if you're just a special teams coordinator, you have a little more time to do this, than somebody who is, coaching linebackers and coaching special teams, because that's going to get to where you're having to do a whole lot on your work plate. But if you find a way, man, find a way and do it. My thing is I like to basically find players that coaches are trying to hide, or the weakest links. If we can find that and take advantage of it, that's awesome. Take notes on everything. I like to try to figure out what the opponent's why is. Why are they wanting to do what they're doing? And here in a minute, you'll kind of see what I'm getting into. But for me, I want to figure out what are ways that I can make it very difficult for our current opponent and for future opponents. And here in a second, you kind of see what I'm talking about. But for me, while I'm watching this stuff, trying to figure out, okay, what are ways that I can make their job hard on Friday night. Every single week for us, we keep the same technique, the same terminology, and really the same scheme. But I like to change formations. I'm a huge believer in that. I'm a huge believer in showing different things on film, because I like to take those guys that they might only have 15 minutes a day to work on something Monday through Thursday for Friday night. If I can give them a lot of stuff on film, it's going to make their job hard. And it's going to make it to where they can't cover everything. I like to try to find other teams' success, and capitalize on it. Like if it's game 5 and somebody game 1 blocked a field goal, I'd like to figure out, okay, well, how did that guy get leakage? Where did they get leakage from? I'll watch and see, all right, is that player still playing special teams? Is he still blocking the same way? Is this a guy that we can do maybe the same thing this other team did and has success? Also, I like to use data. And when I say data, I mean, I like to, when I'm taking notes, I'll give you guys an example. If I'm taking notes on a kickoff team, one thing I like to do is, all right, what's their formation? Is the ball on the left hash, middle, or the right hash? Are they in a 6x4 or are they in a 5x5? And let's just say we got 10 games on them. And as I'm watching film throughout these 10 games, if I see that, if I see that already out of 10 kickoffs, they're left hash 6x4, here's 2 or 3 that are in the middle 5x5, then I can start breaking this down with actual percentages, and I can go tell the players at the very end when I'm done with all this and say, all right, there's a 65% chance we're going to see the ball in the left hash with a 6x4. When they're doing that, there's a 85% chance the ball is going to get kicked deep left, and there's a 15% chance the ball is going to get kicked, sky right. So basically I like to take this stuff because if I can tell these kids, percentages, to me, I mean, now not every kid's good at math, but most of those kids, when I sit here and I tell them, hey, there's a high probability that you're going to see this, they're going to be more prepared for it, in my opinion, when it comes down to Friday. And this right here. If you guys want to take a picture of it or a screenshot, this is what I'm meaning by, when I'm studying an opponent, this is everything that I'm looking for. This is an example I gave. Like if I'm looking at somebody's punt team, first thing I'm going to look at is personnel. Who's their punter, long snapper, gunners, shield players. Basically, how far is the punter from the line of scrimmage? Who are the players on the line of scrimmage? And I like to try to have as many jersey numbers as I can, but sometimes with huddle, you guys know sometimes the huddle, not every jersey number is clear, but I like to try to have as many of those main guys as I can. I like to try to figure out who their weakest, most vulnerable guy is, maybe where a block lane is. Are there any subs of great concern on or off the field, guys that we need to be aware of? Then I'll go to formations, and figure out, all right, well, what's the most alignment? Are they a shield team? Are they a pro style 1PP team? Do they have gunners tight, spread? Pretty much looking for anything that I can find that's relevant and common. What's their philosophy? Where are they trying to punt the ball to? What's the punting direction? Why are they doing that? Are they trying to shrink the field or just allow time for a cover? What's the block point? The block point's huge for us because, I like to tell the kids where the block point is every week because, I don't want them to be going to block a punt and just be tracking straight where the punter is. I want them to know where he's going. So if I can try to get a accurate operation time and an accurate block point, for them and tell them that's going to help them out tremendously, in my opinion. And then, rolling into how I present the game plan. If you guys want to, screenshot this as well, you guys can. So what I do every week on Sunday nights, I basically put all these in the players' lockers, and I post them all in the locker room. I give them to our head coach. But what I do is as I'm taking notes down, because I like to do it by hand. As I'm taking notes down, I'll then take these and I'll put them in a scouting report, basically all the notes I took in a scouting report on a Google Doc, and I'll type it up just like this. And this is exactly what the players read. And some of this stuff might look like hieroglyphics, but what I do is I basically also couple a Google slide with them. So as I'm going through things, if I see, personnel or formation, I'll screenshot it on my laptop where it shows the opponent game and it shows what clip number it is. And I'll put it in a Google slide and basically label it under one of these units, like, field goal block. So as the players, on Monday, when they come in for practice, they can sit here, they can read it, get most of their information. But at night, when they go home, they can look at this at this page and they can go through the Google slide that will be downloaded to Huddle. They can look at this and know exactly what I'm talking about, and they can see the formation. And it makes it's to me it's kind of a cheating tool because these players, you preach to them all the time for them to watch film, and you trust that they watch film on special teams. But for me, this is a great opportunity for these players to kind of go ahead and be watching film on special teams when they know when they might not think they really are. In terms of like that kid might be more inclined to watch offense and defense. But if I put this in front of him and he knows, hey, I want you to read the scouting report and look at what I have on Huddle, he's rolling through this. And then if he wants to look deeper into it, he can click on the opponent and he can look at those specific plays. All right, practice schedule. And if you guys got any questions, man, please chime in. Practice schedule for us, during school, this is what it looks like. As long as there's not like a homecoming parade or anything that's going to hinder this, this is usually how we have our practices Monday through Thursday aligned. And I kind of threw in here, random like, kickoff, kick return, punt. What I like to do is basically try to hit each unit twice if I can. Um, we have a pre-practice time before practice that I get 15 minutes. So I like to try to, hit a unit there in the middle. We'll have about 14 minutes for special teams. I usually hit about, 6 or 7 minutes on 2 units. And then if I can defensively, that's where I like to incorporate, we might be going, defense in the red zone. Then at one point, I'll incorporate field goal block into it. Or we might be working, just defense, middle of the field. And, they go 3 and out. All right, here we go. Let's put our punt return team out there. So we'll try to figure out ways during the week on defense that we can try to steal some reps on those defensive special teams units. Like I said, not everybody might not get this time. I'm very thankful and blessed to be at a place where we get a lot of time on special teams. If you don't get a lot of time on special teams, it's kind of hard to get everything in. Thursday for us, this is my time to where if there's anything that I didn't hit on Monday, Tuesday or Wednesday, I can get on it on Thursday. We'll come straight into Thursday walkthrough, and basically after the kids stretch, we'll go right into special teams. And I like to go in this order. And if I need to hit on a little bit more on one of these units, I'll do it. If the kids, during the week, if they've got kickoff team pretty much down pat, we'll do 2 or 3 reps, and then we'll move on to kickoff return, and we'll just go through this. KO and KOR hands. I don't want you guys to think that this is the first time we work those. We work kickoff and kickoff return hands team a lot in the summertime, and we work a lot of different guys on those units. Just to figure out, who can we put in what spot, who can we trust, because you guys know this, man. If the hands team has to go out there, it's a huge, crucial moment. So we like to go ahead and cover that in the summer, but we'll work that in our walkthroughs. We'll go through a punt. We have a regular punt, then we'll back it up, into our end zone, and then we'll take a safety with it, and then we'll roll kickoff after safety. And then we'll kind of go into our defensive special teams, and then we'll go 2-minute offense usually at the end of our walkthrough. Our offense is usually last to go. At the end, they'll go 2-minute, and then we'll run the field goal team out there for 2-minute operation. Game day Fridays, besides the game, our pregame routine, this is kind of like I drew it up again for you guys. If this is the 50 and that's the home side and that's the away side, we'll get all the specialists out there. We'll get the returners out there, quarterbacks, centers, wide receivers. They'll meet in the end zone. We'll break them away, and this is kind of how we divide up that half of the field. And to me, this is I want to show this just because as a first year coordinator, if your head coach, luckily, my head coach was the one that he already had this all designed how he wanted it. If he didn't have it designed how he wanted it, as a coordinator, first year coordinator, there's no telling what I would have had out there. And I'm just being honest with you, just because I know how we did it when I was in high school. I know how we did it in college, but everybody wants it to be different. For us, we'll go centers and quarterbacks. They'll get exchanges over here. Wide receivers, and quarterbacks, they'll kind of, they'll work on some stuff over here, and then right here in the middle, we'll have our specialists, holders, kickers, snappers, hit a couple extra points, and then I'll move them hash to hash, middle of the field, depending on how the kicker's doing. If he's doing very good, I'll back him up and see, how far he wants to go. If he's struggling, I don't make him go. If he's struggling, I'll go ahead and cut him off. If he's struggling, I'll go ahead. If it's 3 kicks in, 4 kicks in, besides an extra point, and he's missing, I'll go ahead and say, hey man, go get the sticks. Shake it off. Go get the sticks. I'll let him go collect himself, and then I'll bounce back over here where we'll have our punters, snappers, and our returners working. We like to have our returners. I have a coach sitting about 15 yards in front of them. Whenever the ball's in the air, the returner catches it, he has to make a move on coach. I don't ever let those guys just catch the ball and toss it back to coach, or catch the ball and they hit like a 5-yard burst. I make them work 10 to 15 yards to coach, put a move on them, and then toss the ball. After about probably 6 minutes or so, we'll flip it and we'll do returners, basically in the end zone or on the goal line, and we'll have our punters up top, kind of near the 50. And that's pretty much our Friday routine. And this is kind of getting into the last little bit of my spill. After game days, you got to retain stats and you got to self scout, in my opinion. Sundays, you're going to have to debrief, or you might debrief on Saturdays. I like to go ahead and have everything done to where when we go in there on Sunday, I can not only inform the head coach, but I can inform, the other coaches on staff of, what went well and what didn't go well. And also, who the player of the game was and who's struggling. If I take stats after every game, in my opinion, this makes it to where at the end of the season, I'm well organized. It goes back into January. If I do this every single game, like how I had on the first slide in January, those stats are already done. I don't have to worry about going back through and going game to game to game. I can also keep players informed on how they're doing on special teams. I can find weak links, make adjustments, and right here, make small changes every game. Like I said, I'm a huge guy on change things up week to week. You don't have to change your scheme necessarily, and you don't have to change your technique necessarily, but change formations, man. Throw different things out there. One thing that we started doing that I really, really liked was, man, towards the end of the season, we started playing these teams that had dangerous returners, or they would put 2 returners back deep, to try to get a better chance to field the football. And for us, instead of us staying in like a two-man shield with like a wing, I kind of said, hey, well, all right, let's just do this. Let's just go pretty much, one personal protector and go like a max spread punt, but almost look like offense. So if we're in the middle of the field, we're running doubles. We're running 2 gunners on the right, 2 gunners on the left against these guys. If we're on the right hash, we'll go, single gunner on the right, basically like a single receiver, and we'll go trips on the left. And these guys have landmarks, and I can kind of get into that and stuff, later on. But, making small changes like that, especially going into those type of teams, it makes it to where they got to work on 2 different formations. They got to work on the formation we're doing and how they're going to block that punt. And also they got to work on what we're doing now. So to me, that makes it to where you can kind of create an edge and really win the battle on special teams and make your opponent work more during the week. When it comes down to stats and stuff, this is just a screenshot of what like a Google sheet would look for me. Again, this might look like hieroglyphics to me. It makes sense, but I just basically go through each unit, that was actually out on the field, and I'll go through and kind of just take, shorthand statistics, defensive average field position, offensive average field position. And I like to keep track of this every single week. So at the very end, I can kind of make my final regular season totals. And then when we go into playoffs, I'll kind of create a separate one for playoffs. That way I don't mix the two. But this one's like 2023 season, this past season. But I have one for each year previously. So I might go on here and it might be, Haralson County game 5. I can look and see, all right, well, this is how we did this year, Haralson County game 5. Let me go look at the previous years and let me see how many opportunities we had on these units. And if any of these, if there's anything that we're struggling on, or if there's anything that we're doing that we've gotten a lot better at. But to me, this is kind of how I kind of stay organized. Like I said, I can talk X's and O's, whatever you guys, I can answer for you. But, this is my Twitter. This is probably the easiest way to get a hold of me. And then I can give you my number, that type of stuff, if you got questions. But, I'm always open and for opportunities like this, man. You guys are doing a fantastic job of jumping the curve in the off season and getting on on something like this, because take as many chances as you can to learn. This is my 4th year as a coordinator. I'll be going into year 5 as a coordinator next year, and each year just try to get better, man. Try to get better on something, and each time that you send in on something like this, try to take something away from it, in my opinion.
All right, awesome. I'm gonna wrap up the presentation super fast with just our little closing stuff, and then anyone that wants to hang out, ask questions, go over X's and O's, do a Q&A, anything like that, we'll stay on after the recording. So thanks for joining. We try to do this, I don't know, we're probably going to try to do it at least once a month. We're going to try for 5 episodes. So I thought this was a great way to kick off. Had an awesome speaker going over stuff that I think is really important, not just for guys starting out, although I think it's valuable for them too, but also guys who've been in it for a while, looking for new ways to maximize their time, stuff like that.